the boy who guarded the dream in the small town of Meadowbrook, where the morning sun painted golden streaks across dew-kissed lawns, lived a boy named Ethan who was as slender as a young birch tree. With limbs that seemed too long for his body and a frame that appeared fragile as glass, Ethan stood out among his peers, not for his presence but for his absence of physical prowess. 12 years old, he had tried more sports than there were seasons in the year, yet none had claimed his heart. Ethan's journey through the world of sports began with table tennis. The tiny white ball darted back and forth like a hummingbird in flight, too quick for his unpracticed eyes to follow. His coach, Mr. Henderson, would sigh softly as Ethan missed yet another return. "Keep your eye on the ball, son, Mr. Henderson would say, his voice as gentle as a summer breeze. "It's not about hitting hard, it's about seeing clearly." But Ethan's vision seemed to blur when the ball approached, as if his eyes were made of water and the ball a stone creating ripples with every movement. After 3 months of missing more balls than he hit, Ethan politely thanked Mr. Henderson and moved on. Next came American football. The boys in his neighborhood played rough games in the field behind the school, their bodies colliding with the force of young rams. Ethan watched from the sidelines, his thin frame shivering not from cold but from fear. When he finally mustered the courage to join, the football felt like a boulder in his hands. The first time he was tackled, he fell to the ground as gracefully as a felled tree, the air knocked from his lungs. "You okay, Ethan?" asked Jake, the team captain, extending a hand that looked as thick as a tree branch compared to Ethan's delicate fingers. Ethan nodded, though his body ached as if he'd been rolled down a hill. He practiced for weeks, but the fear of impact never left him. Each game felt like walking into a storm knowing lightning would strike. Volleyball followed, with its net dividing the court like a mountain range between two valleys. Ethan could serve the ball over the net, but when it came time to spike, his timing was always off, like a dancer missing the beat of the music. The ball would either fly wildly into the stands or drop pitifully short of the net. "Jump higher, Ethan," his teammates would shout, but his legs felt as heavy as lead weights, unable to lift him with the grace the sport required. Tennis came next, with its precise movements and demanding footwork. Ethan loved the sound of the ball hitting the sweet spot of the racket, a satisfying thwack that echoed like applause. But his serves lacked power, floating gently into the service box instead of exploding with force. His backhand was weak, his forehand inconsistent. For 6 months, his coach pulled him aside. "Ethan," she said, her voice kind but honest, "tennis requires a certain physicality that you haven't developed yet. Perhaps another sport would suit you better." Ethan's heart sank like a stone in a pond, but he nodded bravely, thanking her for her time. Pickleball, a hybrid of tennis and badminton, became his next attempt. The smaller court and slower pace seemed promising at first. For a while, Ethan enjoyed himself, the paddle feeling comfortable in his hands, the ball moving at a speed his eyes could track. He even won a few games against other beginners. But as he improved, so did his opponents, and soon he found himself outmatched again, his reflexes too slow, his movements too hesitant. "I'm just not cut out for sports," Ethan confided to his mother one evening, his voice as heavy as his heart. His mother, Sarah, looked at him with eyes that held the warmth of 1,000 suns. Sweetheart, sometimes it takes many tries to find where you belong. Don't give up yet. Then came soccer. Or football, as some called it. Ethan had watched the World Cup with his father, marveling at the players' endurance, the balletic grace of their movements, the thunderous roar of the crowd when a goal was scored. When his friend Miguel invited him to join a recreational team, Ethan agreed, though without much hope. The first practice was a revelation. The soccer field stretched before him like an emerald ocean, the goal posts standing like white sentinels at each end. The ball felt right against his foot, not too heavy, not too light. When he kicked it, it sailed through the air with a satisfying whoosh. Nice kick, Ethan, Coach Davis called out, his voice carrying across the field like a friendly bird song. For the first time, Ethan felt a spark of possibility. He joined the team as a defender, then tried midfield, but neither position felt quite right. He was too slow to keep up with faster players, too easily pushed off the ball by stronger opponents. But then, during one practice, the team's goalkeeper was sick, and Coach Davis asked Ethan to stand in goal. Just for today, son. Don't worry about being perfect. Just stop what you can. As Ethan stood between the goalposts, the world seemed to shift. The vast expanse of the field before him made sense in a way it never had before. He could see the plays developing Anticipa, where the ball would go. When a shot came toward him, time seemed to slow down. He dove, his body moving with a purpose he'd never felt before, and felt the solid thud of the ball against his chest. In that moment, something clicked. Like a puzzle piece finding its place, Ethan had found his position. But the journey had just begun, and the path was strewn with obstacles that seemed as insurmountable as mountains. Ethan was lean and looked weak among his classmates. In a school where physical development varied widely, Ethan stood at the bottom of the ladder. His arms were thin as reeds, his chest flat, his legs lacking the muscular definition that even some of the girls in his class had developed. During gym class, when the arm wrestling competitions began, Ethan became the unofficial champion of losing. His arm would be pinned to the table within seconds, sometimes by boys who barely seemed to try, other times by girls who giggled apologetically as they defeated him. Sorry, Ethan, said Lisa, one of the strongest girls in class, after beating him for the third time in a row. I don't even work out or anything. Ethan forced a smile, but inside, he felt as small as a grain of sand on a vast beach. How could he be a goalkeeper, the last line of defense, when he couldn't even win a simple test of strength? The fear of the soccer ball was another hurdle. When his classmates kicked the ball, it seemed to transform into a projectile shot from a cannon, coming toward him with frightening speed and force. Ethan would flinch, turning away or raising his hands in defense rather than attempting to catch it. Stand your ground, Ethan, Coach Davis would shout, his patience wearing thinner with each practice. The ball can't hurt you if you position yourself right. But Ethan's body didn't believe his coach's words. Every time the ball approached, his muscles would tense, his eyes would squeeze shut, and his heart would race like a trapped bird. The impact, when it came, would jar his entire body, leaving stinging sensations on his palms and arms. Physicality was another challenge. Soccer, especially at the goalkeeper position, required strength and resilience. Ethan was neither. In games, opposing players would easily push him aside, treating him like a blade of grass in their path. He would stumble and fall, sometimes multiple times in a single game, his body collecting bruises like trophies of his inadequacy. Even with shin guards, Ethan felt the impact when players accidentally kicked his legs. Contact sent shockwaves through his bones, leaving him wincing in pain and limping for days afterward. The shin guards, meant to protect him, felt like paper shields against swords. Jumping was a particular source of frustration. Goalkeepers needed to leap high to catch crosses and shots aimed at the top corners of the net. Ethan's jumps were barely noticeable, his feet leaving the ground by mere inches, while other players seemed to defy gravity, soaring through the air like eagles. During one game, a corner kick came sailing toward the far post. Ethan jumped with all his might, stretching his arms upward like a tree reaching for the sun. But the ball sailed over his fingertips, and an opposing player headed it into the net. "Sorry, team," Ethan mumbled afterward, his face burning with shame. Kicking and throwing the ball presented their own challenges. When distributing the ball after a save, Ethan's kicks would fall short, landing at the feet of opposing players instead of reaching his teammates. His throws were equally weak, traveling only a fraction of the distance needed. Diving, the most spectacular part of goalkeeping, was completely beyond him. When Ethan tried to dive for a shot, his body would move as if through molasses, slow and uncoordinated. More often than not, he would land awkwardly, missing the ball entirely and sometimes injuring himself in the process. Speed was the final piece of the puzzle. Goalkeepers need to be quick off their lines to cut off angles and through balls. Ethan's running resembled that of a tired tortoise, his legs moving slowly, unable to cover ground quickly enough. After another particularly difficult game where he had let in 5 goals, Ethan sat alone on the bench, his head in his hands. The setting sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, but Ethan saw only darkness. "Ethan," came a gentle voice. Coach Davis stood beside him, his shadow falling over the boy like a protective blanket. "Rough game, huh?" Ethan nodded, unable to speak around the lump in his throat. "You know," Coach Davis said, sitting down beside him, "when I was your age, I was the worst player on my team. Couldn't kick straight, couldn't run fast, couldn't jump to save my life." Ethan looked up, surprised. "But you're a coach now. You must have been good." Coach Davis smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "I got good. But not overnight. Took years of practice, of falling down and getting back up, of believing in myself when no one else did." He put a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "You have something special, son. I see it when you watch the game, when you anticipate plays before they happen. That's not something you can teach. That's instinct. The physical stuff? That can be developed." if you want it badly enough. That night, Ethan lay in bed staring at the ceiling as moonlight streamed through his window. Coach Davis's words echoed in his mind. The physical stuff can be developed. If you want it badly enough. Did he want it badly enough? Question rolled around in his thoughts like a marble in a box. He thought about the feeling of standing between the goalposts, the entire field spread before him like a map. He thought about the rare moments when he had made a good save, the pride that had swelled in his chest like a balloon. He thought about the way his heart raced when the ball came toward him, not just with fear but with excitement. Yes, he decided. He wanted it badly enough. The next morning, Ethan woke up before dawn, the sky still dark and dotted with stars. He pulled out a notebook and began to write, his handwriting determined and clear. He titled the page Action Plan and began to list the steps he would take to transform himself from the weakest goalkeeper in the league to one of the best. First on his list, physical training. Ethan knew he needed to build strength, endurance, and agility. He began with bodyweight exercises that required no equipment, just determination and sweat. Push-ups became his morning ritual. First, he could barely manage 3 before his arms trembled like leaves in a storm. But he persisted, adding 1 more each day until he could do 20, then 30, then 50. His arms began to firm up, developing muscles that looked like small hills beneath his skin. Sit-ups followed, burning his abdomen like fire. He started with 10, then 20, then 50, his stomach muscles screaming in protest but growing stronger with each repetition. Soon, his midsection was as tight as a drum, a solid core that would serve as the foundation for his goalkeeping. Squats came next, at first awkward and unbalanced, then smooth and controlled. Ethan could feel the muscles in his legs growing, his thighs becoming firmer, his calves more defined. The stairs at school, once a challenge to climb, became easy, his legs carrying him upward with newfound strength. Planks were torture. Holding his body in a straight line, supported only by his forearms and toes, Ethan would shake and sweat, counting the seconds until he could collapse. But day by day, he increased his time from 30 seconds to a minute, then 2 minutes, then 5. His core became iron, solid, and unshakable. Leg raises, burpees, mountain climbers, jumping jacks, high knees, lunges, calf raises, glute bridges, bicycle crunches, Russian twists, flutter kicks, Superman exercises. Ethan incorporated them all into his routine, his body transforming from a slender reed to a sturdy young tree, flexible yet strong. Cardio became the next focus. Ethan started running, at first barely able to make it around the block without stopping to gasp for air. But he persisted, his lungs burning, his legs aching until the distance became easier. Soon he was running 2 miles, then 3, then 5, his breath coming in steady rhythm rather than ragged gasps. Jogging, swimming, cycling, skipping rope, dancing, hiking, rowing, stair climbing, shadowboxing, kickboxing, aerobics, Zumba, spinning classes, Ethan tried them all, finding joy in movement in the way his body responded to challenge, growing stronger, faster, more resilient with each passing day. Flexibility was not to be overlooked. Ethan began practicing yoga, his body at first stiff and uncooperative, then gradually loosening, bending in ways he never thought possible. Pilates followed, strengthening his core while improving his balance and control. Dynamic stretching before workouts and static stretching after became non-negotiable parts of his routine, his muscles becoming as pliable as warm wax while retaining their strength. Diet was the next piece of the puzzle. Ethan researched nutrition, learning about the importance of protein for muscle repair, complex carbohydrates for sustained energy, healthy fats for brain function, and vitamins and minerals for overall health. He worked with his mother to transform their family's eating habits, replacing sugary cereals with oatmeal and fruit, swapping processed snacks for nuts and yogurt, and ensuring each meal contained a balance of nutrients. Change was remarkable. Within weeks, Ethan felt more energetic, his mind clearer, his body recovering faster from workouts. The junk food he once craved lost its appeal, replaced by a hunger for foods that fueled his dreams. Goalkeeping drills became the focus of Ethan's afternoons. He would beg his father to take him to the local field, where he would practice for hours, his movements growing more confident, more precise with each repetition. Catching drills came first. Ethan started with simple throws against a wall, catching the ball as it rebounded. He progressed to having his father kick balls at him from close range, then farther away. He learned to cushion the impact with his hands, to absorb the force rather than fight it, until catching became second nature. DV. Ing was the most challenging. First, Ethan was hesitant, afraid of hitting the ground hard. But he started slowly, kneeling and diving onto soft grass, then progressing to standing dives onto a practice mat. He learned to land on his side, to tuck his arm to protect his head, to explode toward the ball with confidence rather than fear. Throwing and kicking drills followed. Ethan practiced throwing the ball like a baseball, using his entire body to generate power. He worked on his goal kicks, approaching the ball at the right angle, making contact with the sweet spot of his foot, following through completely. Slowly, his throws and kicks began to travel farther, reaching his teammates with accuracy and power. Positioning was perhaps the most important skill Ethan developed. He studied angles, learning how to cut down the shooter's options by positioning himself correctly. He practiced coming off his line to narrow the angle on breakaways, judging the perfect moment to commit. He learned to read the game, to anticipate where the ball would go next, positioning himself accordingly. Ethan became a student of the game, watching videos of great goalkeepers like Manuel Neuer, Alisson Becker, and Hope Solo. He studied their movements, their decision-making, their technique. He paused and replayed crucial saves, analyzing every detail until he could replicate them in his own practice. He joined a local soccer club that offered more competitive play than his school team. The first few games were humbling, his skills still developing, his confidence still fragile. But with each game he improved, learning from his mistakes, growing stronger with each challenge. Tournaments became opportunities to test his skills against a wider range of opponents. Ethan faced faster shooters, smarter players, more challenging situations. He let in goals, plenty of them, but he also made saves that surprised even himself, his body moving with a newfound grace and confidence. Throughout his journey, Ethan's belief in himself grew like a seedling in fertile soil. There were days when he doubted himself, when the progress seemed too slow, when the obstacles seemed too large. But he never gave up, remembering Coach Davis's words, remembering the feeling of making a perfect save, remembering the dream that had taken root in his heart. He worked hard every day, even when he didn't feel like it, even when his muscles ached, even when the weather was bad. Rain or shine, hot or cold, Ethan was out there, practicing, improving, growing. He cut sugar and junk food from his diet completely, treating his body like a temple rather than a garbage dump. Cravings came, especially after difficult games or stressful days at school, but Ethan resisted, choosing long-term health over short-term pleasure. Sleep became a priority. Ethan learned that his muscles grew and repaired during rest, that his mind processed information and consolidated memories while he slept. He established a bedtime routine, turning off screens an hour before bed, reading instead, ensuring he got at least 9 hours of sleep each night. Motivation was key. Ethan surrounded himself with reminders of his goal, posters of famous goalkeepers on his walls, quotes about perseverance and hard work written on sticky notes around his mirror, a journal where he recorded his progress and setbacks. He stayed focused on his dream, letting it guide him through difficult times, inspire him to keep going when he wanted to quit. The transformation didn't happen overnight. It was a gradual process, like the carving of a sculpture, with each day's effort chipping away at the marble of his limitations, revealing the statue within. Through a year of dedicated training, Ethan began to see significant changes. His body had filled out, his arms and legs now defined with muscle rather than just bone. He could hold his own in arm wrestling matches, sometimes even winning against boys who had previously defeated him easily. His fear of the soccer ball had diminished, replaced by a confidence that came from countless repetitions. When a shot came toward him, he no longer flinched but moved decisively, his hands positioned correctly, his body balanced and ready. The physicality of the game no longer intimidated him. Ethan had learned to use his body effectively, to position himself so that opponents couldn't easily push him around. When they did make contact, he had the strength to hold his ground, the balance to stay on his feet. His jumping ability had improved dramatically. Ethan could now leap high enough to catch crosses that previously would have sailed over his head. His timing had improved too, allowing him to judge the flight of the ball and meet it at the highest point. His kicks and throws now traveled the length of the field, reaching his teammates with accuracy and power. He could distribute the ball quickly and effectively, starting counterattacks with a single throw or kick. Diving had become Ethan's specialty. He could explode sideways or forward, covering incredible distances to reach shots that seemed destined for the back of the net. His technique was flawless, landing safely in SECU. Protecting himself while making spectacular saves. His speed had improved too. Ethan could now cover ground quickly, coming off his line to cut off angles, rushing out to clear through balls before attackers could reach them. His agility allowed him to change direction instantly, reacting to the unpredictable nature of the game. The changes hadn't gone unnoticed. Coach Davis watched Ethan's progress with pride, offering guidance and encouragement along the way. His teammates, who had once been skeptical of his abilities, now relied on him, trusting him to make crucial saves when needed. Even opponents began to take notice. During one particularly important game against their rival school, the opposing coach was heard saying to his players, "Don't shoot directly at the goal." keeper is too good. Look for the deflection instead. High school arrived, bringing with it a higher level of competition. Ethan tried out for the school team, his heart pounding with nervousness. Tryouts were grueling, testing every aspect of his goalkeeping skills. On the final day of tryouts, the coach gathered the players. Making this team was difficult, he said, his voice serious. We had many talented goalkeepers try out. But only one can be our starter. Ethan's heart sank. He had played well during tryouts, but so had several other goalkeepers. He braced himself for disappointment. That goalkeeper, the coach continued, is Ethan Reed. Ethan's head snapped up, unable to believe what he was hearing. His teammates congratulated him, clapping him on the back, but Ethan could barely hear them over the roaring in his ears. He had made it. He was the starting goalkeeper for the high school team. The season was a success. Ethan's skills continued to improve, his confidence growing with each game. He made saves that left spectators gasping, diving through the air like a bird in flight, stopping shots that seemed impossible to reach. Team made it to the state championships, largely thanks to Ethan's performance in goal. College recruiters began to take notice. Ethan received letters from universities across the country, offering him scholarships to play for their teams. He chose a university with a strong soccer program and excellent academics, excited to continue his goalkeeping journey at a higher level. College soccer was faster, more physical, more demanding than high school. Ethan faced shooters who were stronger and more accurate, playing in front of larger crowds with more at stake. But he was ready, thanks to years of preparation and training. He continued his rigorous routine, waking up early for workouts, practicing diligently, studying the game, taking care of his body. His college coach recognized his dedication, naming him the starting goalkeeper as a freshman, a rare honor. Ethan's college career was marked by success. He set records for saves in a season, was named Conference Goalkeeper of the Year twice, and led his team to the national championship in his senior year. As he stood on the podium, holding the championship trophy aloft, tears streamed down his face. This was the culmination of years of hard work, of overcoming obstacles, of never giving up on his dream. But Ethan wasn't done yet. His ultimate goal was to play for the national team, to represent his country on the world stage. After graduating from college, he was drafted by a professional team, taking another step toward his dream. Professional soccer was a different world entirely. Players were faster, stronger, more skilled. Pressure was immense, with every mistake analyzed and criticized. But Ethan was prepared for the challenge. He approached each practice with the same determination he had shown as a young boy, each game with the same focus and intensity. His hard work paid off. Through 3 seasons with his professional team, Ethan received the call he had been dreaming of his entire life. He had been selected to join the national team for the World Cup qualifiers. Standing in the tunnel before his first international match, Ethan felt a wave of emotion wash over him. He thought of that young boy who couldn't win an arm wrestling match, who was afraid of the soccer ball, who couldn't jump or dive or kick or throw. He thought of the early morning workouts, the aching muscles, the moments of doubt, the decision to never give up. As he walked onto the field, the roar of the crowd surrounding him, Ethan knew that all of it had been worth it. He was living his dream, doing what he loved, representing his country on the world stage. The game was intense, the opposition strong and skilled. They tested Ethan with shots from all angles, with crosses into the box, with breakaways that seemed certain to result in goals. But Ethan was equal to the challenge, making save after save, his body moving with grace and power, his mind sharp and focused. In the final minutes of the game, with the score tied 1-1, the opposition launched a final attack. A cross came sailing into the box, finding their star striker unmarked at the far post. The striker leaped, heading the ball toward the top corner of the net, a seemingly unstoppable shot. But Ethan had anticipated the play, reading the striker's movement, positioning himself perfectly. He exploded upward, his body defying gravity, his hand outstretched. The ball connected with his fingertips, changing direction just enough to hit the crossbar and bounce away. The final whistle blew moments later, and Ethan's teammates rushed toward him, celebrating the crucial point earned in the World Cup qualifier. As they lifted him onto their shoulders, Ethan looked up at the sky, a single tear tracing a path down his cheek. He had done it. He had overcome every obstacle, every doubt, every limitation. He had transformed himself from a weak, fearful boy into a strong, confident goalkeeper, representing his country on the world stage. Years later, when Ethan retired from professional soccer, he returned to his hometown of Meadowbrook, where he opened a goalkeeping academy for young players. On the wall of his office, he hung a framed photograph of himself as a young boy, standing between goalposts that seemed too big for him, his expression a mixture of fear and determination. Children would ask him about the photograph, about how he had gone from that hesitant boy to a World Cup goalkeeper. And Ethan would smile, his eyes twinkling with the memory of his journey. Anything is possible if you want it badly enough and are willing to work for it, he would tell them. Every great achievement starts with a dream, followed by the decision to pursue that dream no matter what obstacles stand in your way. And as the young goalkeepers trained on the field below, practicing their dives, their catches, their distribution, Ethan would watch with pride, knowing that somewhere among them might be another boy or girl with a dream, ready to overcome any obstacle to make that dream come true. For Ethan had learned the most valuable lesson of all, that the greatest victories are not won on the field of play, but in the heart and mind, through determination, perseverance, and the unwavering belief that with hard work and dedication, anything is possible.